What's up, everyone, and welcome to the Real Ones Canes podcast. He is Brandon O'Doy. Follow him on the X at Brandon_O'Doy. I am Brian the Beast London. Follow me at Miami Radio Beast. Follow the show at Real Ones Canes. And please subscribe to the podcast wherever you are listening to this. And go check out the YouTube channel. You can hit the like button, hit the thumbs up, hit the bell, be notified of new episodes. We got great content, man. People are, you know what? Do not brush us off with the content. The two of us, mostly Brandon, but sometimes myself, know what the heck we're talking about. Brandon, we're through with like the first week of Canes fall practice here. I believe they're actually scrimmaging as we are recording this episode here on Friday. It's the typical. The defense had this good day. The offense had this good day. This guy stood out this day. This day was another guy stood out. This is what you're going to get all through fall camp, right? Is you're going to get this, well, this practice was good for this side. This practice was good for that side, what have you. We can talk about some names that have come up as being pretty consistent, but it's that back and forth that you always see this early on in fall camp.
Yeah, Beast, it's talking season, and that's what lets you know that football is just around the corner. It starts with the annual media days for the different colleges, and then it gets down to the conferences, or vice versa, and then it carries over into fall camp. And I had a Hurricane coach told you, and I told you this last broadcast, by the end of fall camp, this Miami Hurricane team will have a pretty good idea of the guys it expects to make plays and go out here and try to compete for a championship. At the end of the day, though, it's just talk. Every day they're going to bring up a guy. They're going to manipulate you with information about one guy doing this and that. And the reality is none of it matters. We will find out everything we need to know about this team on August 31st, shortly around 4:30, about an hour into that game, because that way we will know what everything. There won't be any more chips on the table. And the beautiful part about it, Beast, is we play a real opponent for the first game. So we don't have to wait and, play, Sisters of the Poor. Forgive my insensitivity to any particular feminism or any other inappropriate things, but it's a saying in football, like we're not playing
North Dakota Texas the Blind. Yeah,
absolutely. Like another possibly insensitive thing to say, but our point is we're playing a real competitive school that's expected to be good, that's expected to compete for championships, just like the University of Miami. Oh, by the way, it's an in-state rivalry. Oh, by the way, it's a national championship game. Oh, by the way, you've got a couple of guys who are on a lot of award lists. And so it's going to be a game where, Mario Cristobal, Shannon Dawson, Lance Guidry, they're not going to be able to withhold too many cards, because it's a game you have to get out of, and in order to have a special season, you got to win. So I love it because we don't have to wait until game 4 or 5 and all of this other jazz to see, maybe this team looks good. The Texas A&M game was kind of like that last year. There were a few games before that, but these early season legit contests, it's the sign of having a good program, because everybody wants to watch a game that actually is going to be contested. And that's what I think you'll see up in Gainesville.
You can't compare. Listen, Miami's had some big openers in the past, but nothing will beat an in-state rivalry opener, whether it's Florida State or Florida. That's going to bring it to the table. And we'll dissect that matchup as we get closer to the game. And we are going to have to talk about, how open are you with your offense and all of that stuff. And I think you're right. You can't save anything for September 1st. You got to leave it all on the line on August 31st. But you mentioned a couple things I want to get into. One, I just want to talk about, we ended the last show talking about this, but the Biletnikoff watch list came out and you got 3 guys on it. In
an award the University of Miami has never won, one of the few.
Which is, when you think about the receivers that have played at the university, we just saw one go to the Hall of Fame in Andre Johnson. Yeah.
Absolutely nuts.
So you got Xavier Restrepo. You've got Jacoby George, and you've got newcomer Sam Brown on the Biletnikoff watch list.
George was a surprise to me. What about you? I mean, I was surprised to see
Yeah,
him on.
well, I mean, I definitely thought Xavier and Sam Brown would be on it. George, I was like, I could go either way on that. I think his talent's through the roof. It's whether he is mature enough to carry on with that talent.
Well, it just proves how good of a season that Miami had in the receiving room, and what a great job that Kevin Beard has done with a mediocre quarterback. I mean, Restrepo had 1,000 yards. Kobe had 800. The third guy had like approaching like over 5. Like it was a lot of production for a pretty mediocre guy at quarterback. And I think that's fair to say to TVD, and we wish him well at Wisconsin, but I haven't heard anybody saying they miss him up to this point. No. And that means it's a good trade. So, but yeah, I mean, 3 guys on the Bullet, and they didn't even mention Isaiah Horton, who's expected to be good. They didn't even mention, Josiah Trader, who's probably going to contribute, and Ray Armstrong, who in year 2
Ray Joseph.
Ray Joseph. All right, yeah, too many Rays coming through Miami. But
Nikar too.
Nikar, I haven't heard as much about Nikar, but at the end of the day, Trader's going to produce, and Ray's going to produce. And this is a little bit of insider knowledge. But Horton's expected to have a really good year. But the beautiful thing is, who are you going to double? Because there's just too many. I mean, assuming the starting lineup is some variation of Restrepo, Kobe George, Horton, and Sammy Brown. It's like with the rotation of Trader, Ray, Nikar, and we haven't even talked about Chance Robinson, and
True.
who just showed up this summer. And I mean, that receiving core is deep. So it's like we're gonna hit you with at least 2 front lines at receiver.
And you didn't even mention Robbie Washington.
Robbie Washington, who should contribute at some point. He's fast enough. I like Robbie Washington to potentially be like a replacement to the young man who went to SMU, Brashad Smith.
Yeah,
he can do some running and he can do some catching. I mean, that may be the new tight end H-back freshman from Bishop Gorman. So I don't know. And then your boy Arroyo, and then you bring back the old man. There's a lot of people to catch the football. Okay. So Biletnikoff, 3 guys, I'll take it. But I mean, listen, you got to compete for these awards. You got to be a finalist for some of these awards. And when you do that, Beast, that's the mark of a good team. So you definitely want to have a finalist for the Biletnikoff. A Doak Walker finalist would be nice. A Nagorski finalist would be nice. I mean, getting guys into even a Heisman finalist. I would love to see Cam invited to New York. You know what I mean? Or, it's got to be Cam. They don't give the award to anybody else these days. It's a quarterback award. I don't even know why. But at the end of the day, a Remington Award winner, hey, put somebody in the finals of every one of these.
Yeah, I mean, and that's, kind of, when I started covering this team, like, getting those press releases that Canes were on those watch lists or finalists was like, a dime a dozen. It was just every award had a Miami Hurricane attached to it, but, different era, different time. Hopefully they get back to that. You talk about the quarterback, you talk about the receiving group, and Shannon Dawson. I had a chance to check in with him and what he said. He was salty about turning the ball over last year. He was salty, especially about turning the ball over in the red zone. And if you think you can improve on those 2 things, turning the ball over, and then also when you're in the red zone, getting 7 or getting 6 instead of 3, how markedly better your offense will be is exponential.
Coach Dawson and I had a off the cuff conversation because we do have a little bit of a relationship, and he was just marking over the depth. The depth in every room. It's like that quarterback room goes from being like, yee, to like, whoa. You know what I mean? And a lot of people are pointing me to Emory Williams. That was the quiet talk, and we didn't really talk about this last week, don't forget about him. You know, he's a guy that had Miami poised in this Florida State game to make a run. And, you know, if he doesn't get injured, who's to say Miami doesn't come back and win that game? Right. But, I mean, you kind of like the way he laid it on the line. He got back faster from injury than anyone suspected. He looks really good. No one talks about him right now because he's third on the depth chart, but at the end of the day, he's still in this program, and he's probably going to take a much-needed redshirt year, be able to get bigger, faster, stronger, but his talent hasn't gone anywhere. You know what I mean? So it's just, if I'm Shannon Dawson, I'm thinking to myself, like, wow, what a fun year I'm about to have, because I don't have to get married to anything, and I don't have to fear guys getting hurt.
And you wonder, with that depth, not only at quarterback, but we talked about wide receiver. We talked about, I mean, the running back room. Go try to figure out that lineup, right? With Damian Martinez and Fletcher. They were talking about Chris Johnson all day yesterday about how much he's come on. And, you know, Chris Wheatley-Humphreys. And, I mean, the freshman, help me out here.
Jordan Lyle. I think Jordan Lyle. Listen, yeah, I'm excited about. Everybody's concerned about Mark Fletcher coming back. You don't have to rush a Mark Fletcher back.
Well, they're not. He's only playing 30 to 40% of the snaps in practice that he should be. They're holding him out,
and I'm fine with that, because you know what? No problem. Hey, you surprised as a freshman. We got a freshman that's almost in the same build, that has the same ability that you have to come out here in Jordan Lyle and do the same things. He did it at St. Thomas as a true freshman. I expect him to do it at the University of Miami. Martinez is who he's advertised to be. And at the end of the day, you've got Martinez, you've got a Chris Johnson that's matured. He's a year in the program. Oh, by the way, he's really fast. He can be used in the pass and run game. You've got a Jordan Lyle, and then Mark Fletcher. I mean, he's not going anywhere. I think he's going to be available. And they're going to nurse him up into the Florida game because they know what he can do. He doesn't need an introduction to college football. So it's good in camp for these other guys to get reps. But that's the beauty and the luxury you have. I mean, yeah, you can sit this guy down because you don't have to force him through camp.
And then you talk about the running back depth, the wide receiver depth, the quarterback depth, the offensive line depth. I mean, it was amazing last year. I think it's just as good this year. And I think Alex Maribal does such a good job with the versatility of those guys. I mean, you're talking about Francis Mawanoa, right? At one tackle, he moves over and plays the other side guard, right? That's the move that he can make. He's even played a little bit of center just to give him something to do. And he's coming off an injury. They're doing that with a bunch of guys. I mean, listen, they got Zach Carpenter. They brought him in to play center, and hopefully he's your man. But they're training a bunch of guys. But Alex Maribal basically said, listen, I got 10, 11 guys that could go, and I'm going to get it down to about 9. And then when it's game day, we got our starting 5, and then we got 4 guys that can go play any position if one guy goes down. And it's that kind of depth at those levels of the offense that probably make it pretty damn fun for Shannon Dawson to go come up with the game plan.
Yeah, I mean, I think everything is wide open if you're Shannon Dawson. You got playmakers, you got guys you can put the ball in their hands, and the primary playmaker is the guy that gets the ball on every play, which is your quarterback. So at the end of the day, I'm less convinced about the depth on the offensive line. I'm not saying it's not there. I'm just a little bit more skeptical about it, but I'm more than fine with the depth everywhere else. Tight end, I mean, the position will be decent. And I think if nothing else, Cam showed he could block last year. Arroyo has had a good offseason to the extent of how much he's been used. I think the young man, the true freshman, is the guy to look for at that position.
Yeah, Elijah Lofton. Yeah, another Elijah.
And yeah, Lofton and
by the way,
I'm still waiting to see on the line. I truly am.
And don't forget about Riley, but you know, Shannon
That's what
Dawson.
I'm saying. Cam Riley. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
and
I think he's going to be used in goal line situations where you got to go double tight. I think him and Arroyo.
Yeah, that's what I was getting to.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna see some two tight end sets that are really gonna give some fusses for the defense because these guys are athletic enough. I mean, like again, with the receivers you have, with the speed options you can put in the out of the backfield, the stuff that you can do, like you got to pick your poison if you're a
And
defensive coordinator.
don't forget, and we haven't talked about this, but this is something new in college football. You know, everything can go to Cam on his headset.
Right.
So having an experienced quarterback, you know, the communication, like a lot more stuff can get done because nothing has to be signaled in. We could be saying
we don't have to hold up a picture of a whale to
so
signal
now
a play.
while a guy's running off for a 20-yard run, Dawson can, I don't know when the mic turns on. There are rules.
I think it's at 15 seconds or something like that.
No, I know it turns off at 15. I don't know when it turns on again, like after a play is.
Oh, as soon as the play's over, yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, we're walking down, big explosive play. I already got the next play coming to me or whatever. But I mean, that's going to be a thing too. So, I mean, they've had all offseason to kind of experiment with that. I'm not worried about offense. Defense is the thing that, to me, it's the difference because the reason why 2018 was so special is because the transfer portal, the Manny Diaz defense, how many times they turned the ball over, how many more opportunities the offense got because the defense was so dominant. So that's what I think championship football in Coral Gables looks like.
Let's talk about the defense. Look, up front, they're doing good from all intents and purposes. Everything I hear is Akeem Mesidor looks like he is freaking, back and motoring. They really like the kid from Tennessee, Barron, I think is his name, and working in some of the other guys. But if you listen to everyone speak, Mish, man, it's all about Mish on this defense as far as being a leader. He's come in.
He's been
Washington.
to the promised land. What can you say, Beast?
He's come in from Washington and not missed a beat. Everyone that you talk to has been effervescently glowing about this kid.
That guy could have gone anywhere in the country, and he chose to come to Miami. Think about that. And he came in the first portal window.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking about Michelle Powell from Washington. So he's your undisputed leader right now on defense, along with Kiko. But if you read between the lines,
which is a big deal because when you lose a Cam Kitchens,
right? Yes,
you don't expect a guy to come in and replace him in every way, and that's exactly what's happening. It sounds like.
Yeah, and the other guy I wanted to talk to you about because I'm sure you got a good feel for him is Zaquan Patterson. They can't stop praising how he has come in
because Zaquan should have been a 5-star kid. Zaquan, I've had in hotbed since 6th grade. The question was whether he was going to grow. He's 6'1" now. He can run. He hits like a Mack truck. Outside of getting used to the speed of the game and all of the drama that goes on in college football, he's going to be really, really special. He's going to be one of those safeties that people talk about here. And the question just becomes how soon it's going to happen.
Yeah, Mish Powell said the other day he thinks that Zaquan Patterson has, All-American written all over him.
I mean, this is what Miami should be about. I mean, this NIL has opened this team up. It was the missing link to start keeping some of these kids at home. I've never seen this many good kids stay home since I've been doing this. I mean, this is a kid that would have easily gone to the SEC, easily gone to somewhere else.
1,000%. Yeah.
And it's just like you look up and you're like, crap, how did we lose him? And this is what NIL and Mario Cristobal and the coach that's like really serious and passionate about recruiting. I don't think it's just the money. I think it's, okay, the money gets people's attention. And then it's like, and I've heard this from guys, like when it comes down to Florida State and Miami or Florida and Miami, the Miami coaches just care more. And that just means Mario cares more because it's like he requires relentless recruiting. I had a coach tell me that. He's like, I've been on other staffs. Mario Cristobal forces you to recruit at the level he recruits at, and he does not take no for an answer.
So get into that a little bit because you've been around the country. You know more coaches than I could ever dream about knowing, and you've been inside a lot of places. You get the vibe. You know kids that have gone to other places. Just what is it about this Miami staff
So
on the recruiting trail.
Yeah. So really quickly, it's okay. Recruiting has levels. So at the first level, you have the recruiting staff. They identify the guys, they set the board. Then you have the actual position coach, right? And you have the position coach, but before that, you have the area recruiter. Now, the area is like South Florida, or in some cases, some schools, depending on who they are, they have a guy that works in Dade, they have a guy that works in Broward, they have a guy that works in Palm Beach. That's for a school that like really recruits South Florida. So they put a guy in each city. He gets used to those coaches and that, those high school coaches. He forms relationships. Okay. So you got recruiting staff, 24-hour recruiting staff, area recruiter, position coach, coordinator, and then you got head coach. Okay. Now, when you have an elite guy, meaning a 5-star, like a Josiah Trader type of guy, okay, yeah, you're going to have Kevin Beard on him. And Kevin Beard, because he's a South Florida guy, is going to be his area recruiter too. So that's a double whammy, right? But then in recruiting this guy, you're going to have help from your head coach. A lot of these head coaches don't get involved enough to be able to manage these big recruits. They've got great recruiting staffs. They've got great guys on the ground. These analyst guys, these guys like what Miami just hired, Frank Tucker, and most notably Joe Brown and Roland Smith and Mike Rump, and a lot of the unheralded guys behind the scenes that are really putting in the baseline work, that are managing these visits. You know what I mean? From behind the scenes, your McKenzie's who's showing them around the university, dealing with getting little brother, little sister name tags as they walk onto campus for official and unofficial visits, for practices and all of this other stuff. So this is happening, right? But nobody can replace communication with a head coach. So it's like, I've had kids tell me, I'm being recruited by Miami. Cristobal's texting me every day, talking about things that are not football related. The other head coaches from these other schools are not reaching out to me. Yeah, I'm hearing from the recruiting staff. I'm hearing from maybe my area coordinator. I'm hearing from maybe my position coach or maybe my coordinator, but I'm not hearing from the head coach. I'm hearing from the head coach at the University of Miami, and he's doing it like a machine. And it's authentic and it's real. And the thing that helps Mario, and I've been told this by several people, he has a memory like an elephant. He can remember recruiting guys like going back to like the very beginning of his career. And, people are just blown away by his ability to connect. And when you don't have a head coach or a staff that's doing the kinds of things Miami's doing, and oh, by the way, they usually outbid everyone. I mean, now you see number 5 class in the country. Look at Florida, 50 in the country. Look at FSU. Like, it's not the same. It's just not the same. The only difference is UCF has a darn good staff. Oh, man, they have some of the best recruiting staff in the country. These dudes are really cracking it. Of course, they're from Atlanta, Georgia. A lot of them are Georgia boys like yours truly. So they have that swag. But they're getting a lot of done. They work together really well, and they're pulling a lot of guys that you wouldn't typically see. So it's a situation where it's like, wow, you know what I mean? Like there's a lot to like in that scenario, but Mario Cristobal's the difference. He's truly the difference. He's truly the difference maker. If you look at a situation where your head coach is just as invested or more than anybody to the recruiting process, which is the lifeblood of any program, that's always going to be a difference maker. And that's what you're seeing.
Yeah, it's been amazing to watch, and I can tell you just from the outside looking in, I'm not in the trenches of it like you are, but when you roll through Hard Rock Stadium on a game day and you get there early like we do or like I do, and you see the recruits showing up and you see the layers that just the attention that goes into those visits, that goes into making sure those kids have the best time possible, to making sure they get in front of the coaches they need to get in front of the people they need to get in front of. The parents get the attention that they also deserve, not just the kid. The University of Miami is doing it right. All right, we're going to take a break. On the other side, some of the kind of polls have started, rankings have started to come out. Some of the some of that stuff is starting to fly around. We need to get into it. I think we're going to disagree on some of the projections for the Miami Hurricanes. But that's because I'm a complete homer. So we will do that on the other side. You're listening to the Real Ones Canes podcast. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back to the Real Ones Canes podcast. He is Brandon O'Doy. Follow him at Brandon_O'Doy on the Beast. Brian Lemon. Follow me at Miami Radio Beast. Follow the show at Real Ones Canes. Please subscribe where you're listening to this, to the podcast. If you are watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you hit that like button, that thumbs up, and make sure, without a doubt, you hit the bell so you're notified when new videos drop. You got some great recruiting info on the last segment. Now it's time for us to probably disagree because some of the preseason rankings have come out. Nothing major yet. We're still waiting for the big ones, but there's Miami somewhere down in the low teens, 19, 17, 16. Is that, how's that sound to you, Mr. O'Doy?
Sounds fine. I mean, not the big dogs, not Georgia, not Texas, not, Ohio State, not Ole Miss. And those are the teams that are coming into this season with all the big national championship aspirations and expectations, not expected to be bigger than Florida State or Clemson. And so those are things that, Miami has to continue to work towards and get to the point where they raise preseason expectations. People think they're good. The roster dictates they should be good, but you can't overdo it and give them expectations they definitely can't be a top 10 team. Now, I think those rankings can quickly change. You go to Gainesville and you outclass the Gators, or you go to Gainesville and you struggle with a team that's not supposed to be good. Then those rankings can go up or down drastically. And so I think by the time this thing is all said and done, the most important ranking will be, top 12 and getting into that college football playoff. I still think this team has to make it to the ACC championship. Not sure if they need to win it. A win would be good, but you definitely need to get there. And that's my expectation. My expectation is a team that gets to the ACC championship, does just enough to get into the 12-teamer, and some things have to go well around you. And most notably, you got to win some big games.
I know a lot of the, first of all, in my own belief, I don't even think you should have preseason rankings. I mean, you need it, but I think it's ridiculous because, especially now, the amount of turnaround in these teams, the amount of transfers. We have no idea what these teams are from year to year. Yeah, I mean, it's just completely different. And it's all based on last year, right? So, and Miami wasn't very good last year, and I get it, but they've completely gone in a different direction, especially at the major positions. They've brought in a lot of key talent, both from the transfer portal and in recruiting. To be honest with you, I thought they would be somewhere between like 12 and 14. And I know we're splitting hairs here between 12 and 14 and 17 and 19. I get that. I just thought there'd be a little bit more oomph from Cam Ward and Sam Brown and Damian Martinez and Mish coming in, and just some of these additions they've made, along the defensive line with Barron and some of these other guys. And I thought they'd kind of be boosted up a little bit. Am I wrong?
Yeah, I mean, you got to think, you take those guys off this roster, they probably aren't ranked at all. So, I mean, I think you got the bump, and that is the bump. It's like, okay, yeah, you went out and got a ridiculous amount of talent. We have no idea how it's going to play. We think you'll be good enough to be a top 20 team. Okay, cool. We have to take that. We have no history of being ranked in the preseason, for most years. And so I don't know. It's just, to me, I think it's fair. I think it's extremely fair. I don't think they're underrated. I don't think they're overrated. I think it's extremely fair, especially when you look at the teams that, are ranked above the Hurricanes. Florida State, even though it's not even close to the same team, is ranked above. They just went 13-1. You know what I mean? Clemson's traditionally been better. They're ranked higher. I mean, you're the third team in the ACC. I think it's fair. I really do.
What do you think is good? What do you think it takes in this landscape to make it to the Final 12? You think you have to be in your conference championship game?
I think it depends on how things go. Everybody screams SEC, SEC. SEC had one of the worst years ever last year, and no one talks about it.
Nope.
I mean, they really did. I mean, Alabama needed Nick Saban retiring to get in. They shouldn't have been there. It should have been Georgia, and because they chose the wrong team, they ended up losing the championship to Michigan. I don't think Georgia loses, but at the end of the day, you had two big teams in the two Big Ten teams, or two teams that are now in the Big Ten in the final, right? And so the SEC did not participate at all, and that's a first, for many years. So you look at, if the SEC is as strong as they're being projected to be, if they put in Georgia, Ole Miss, some combination of Bama and like one other team, whether that's LSU or whether that's Tennessee or whatever these odd makers are saying, that gives the SEC 4 teams. The Big Ten will probably have its share of either Ohio State,
by
Michigan.
The way, don't forget about Texas.
Oh yeah, Texas was that 4th team I was looking for. So SEC wise, I forgot Texas is involved. So you got Georgia, Texas, Ole Miss, and probably Alabama are the 4 teams that everybody in the SEC, really projects to be in the playoff. Okay, so that leaves you with about 8 more spots. So now you got, you're gonna have. I mean, and let's face it, there's a hierarchy here. The SEC and the Big Ten, they're gonna get the majority of the teams. And what you've got to do, you got to hope a UCF or a Tulane or an App State or a JMU or some team like that doesn't go undefeated with a decent schedule, because that's going to be the thing that keeps you out. You've got to hope that there are no Cinderella stories. Everybody needs to win the games against the guys that they play that they should. But I think if you get to the ACC championship and you lose it, and you're at least the second best ACC team, you should get in. They should give 2 spots to the ACC. The champion definitely gets in with only 1 loss, maybe as many as 2. But if you have a 2-loss champion in the ACC, the second person probably may not get in. And so this league is not prioritized, whether that's right or wrong. And Miami has a lot to do with that, because Miami has never carried the pail in this league. They've never done it from the day it was created, and so Clemson's held their part of the bargain. FSU's held their part of the bargain. They've both won championships. The Hurricanes just haven't done it. And so at the end of the day, what Miami has done to the ACC may be the thing that keeps them from getting into the college football playoff. And of course, it's not this version of the Miami Hurricanes. It's the Donna Shalala years of kind of devaluing and not keeping up with the arms race and living in the past and playing Notre Dame Part 2 that may end up coming back to bite this university when it needs the strength of a conference to advance in a year where they should be a 1 to 2 loss team.
Something we really haven't talked about, and I haven't dug into in weeks, but University of Miami is looking for a new president, as Julio Frank is going to UCLA. It'd be interesting to see where athletics falls as far as something that is important to whoever they hire.
Well, I'm sad to see Frank go, because he finally bought in. He really was all in. He was a part of this Mario Cristobal hire. He's a part of this money drop. I mean, for that reason alone, I'm sad to see him go. It took a while to get him there, but
I always like, because obviously the University of Miami is in an interesting spot where a lot of the fans, most of the fans that root for the University of Miami did not go there. And so their priority as far as what's important always tends to be sports, right? Football. As an alum, right? Like I care about the academic institution. I care about the medical school. I care about other things that aren't just throwing a ball around. And from that standpoint, Julio Frank, I don't think he had the best tenure as a president of the University of Miami, as you saw some of the academic rankings and stuff drop. So it'll be interesting to see who they go with and what they're looking at for the next president, and what's important to them. And the thing that I always felt like is, yeah, I always wanted the University of Miami to be strong academically. I want the medical school to be great, but there's no better marketing tool for the university as a whole than its football program. And so if we're not putting funds and priorities in that direction, not to take away, listen, let's, brain surgery is important. Finding a cure for cancer, way more important than football. But heart surgery, all that stuff's really important, right? But we need to also make sure that athletics is on that same level, because what it can do for your university on a whole is greatly important. So it'll be just interesting to see, to kind of follow that storyline as they move towards trying to find the next president. And that was always the thing, back when Tad Foote was leaving and they ended up going with Donna Shalala, and, people were trying to read the tea leaves about Donna Shalala coming from Wisconsin and being in the Big Ten and really having a good relationship with Barry Alvarez up there in Wisconsin and what that would mean. And then it tapered off and things didn't go the way we thought it was going to go. Be interesting to just kind of follow that.
Yeah, it will. And you're very thoughtful to bring those things up, because those are important things as far as universities are concerned. University presidents have a lot to do with the athletic and, more importantly, the academic reputation. University of Miami has to maintain its academic reputation as a top 50 academic school. It has got to even promote that and push that forward and try to get, above or on par with the University of Florida in some of the academic prowess that it has. Because if you don't, the deal is this: why would I ever go to Miami? It's not a better school and academically, and it's not a better school athletically in some respects. And you got also baseball recruits who are saying, man, I ain't going to Miami. I got to pay more, and the school's not as good. Like, it affects you in all sports outside of football. So it's a big deal.
That's, you just brought up a huge thing. The NCAA is changing that. You're going to have more scholarships available for the other sports.
Can I tell you something quickly? I talked to Josh White. So I say, Josh, and for those of you who don't know, he's the SID for baseball at the University of Miami. I said, Josh, there are 35 scholarships for baseball now. This means we come back, right? He said, not sure. I said, what do you mean? Like 35 scholarships, like we can play ball again. He's like, everybody's not going to fund 35 scholarships.
No, that's what I was getting to, is they have those available. That doesn't mean they have to fund them. So
you have to fund them if you're Miami. If you want to come back, if you want, listen, how bad does it get? He said the 1950s. I said, listen, if you want to be back in this sport, baseball, and I know this is blasphemous to talk baseball, right, as we're a few weeks away from Kane's football opener, but like, it's apropos to bring it up in all this presidential conversation. You've got to fund those 35. Otherwise, you might as well give it up. How can you? These last 10 years have to have proven to you that baseball will never be on top again if you don't fund 35 full scholarships.
So my son, through the grace of every deity you believe in, had the chance to spend the summer at the University of Miami. He's a high school student, but he had a chance to go take college classes at the University of Miami in digital media production. And he stayed on campus, stayed in an old dorm that I used to live in, all this stuff. He had a great time. And they're like recruiting him to go to the University of Miami for their school communications, broadcast, whatever. There's only one little thing that stands in the way: $93,000 a year. That's how much it costs to go to the University of Miami. $93,000 a year. So if he doesn't get a scholarship, that ain't happening. So you can only imagine.
And you know where he's going to get? You know where he's going to get recruited to next?
Yep.
The University of Florida, where your wife went, where it's a fraction of the cost.
Actually, to be honest with you, in what he's studying, actually, Florida State and UCF are actually bigger in that area than UF is.
Doesn't matter.
Right.
Same scenario.
Right. Exactly.
Scenario.
Right. So there you go. But just think about it if you're a baseball player, right? And you're getting recruited by Miami, and they're going to offer you like an eighth of a scholarship, and then you have to pay, another $75,000 to go to school there.
But you know what's so funny? If I was University of Miami, knowing your background, knowing this kid come up, if I found out about them, I would give that kid money to go because he is the future of the proliferation of the brand of the University of Miami football. Like he's born into it.
It's nice of you to say that. I don't think they care.
I don't think they should do either, but it would be interesting.
They should. It'd be nice if they did.
Thinking outside of the box.
Yeah, no doubt.
$93,000. Is it really cost that much?
$93,000 a year.
Yikes.
Exactly. We all got to hope our kids get big time scholarships. That's what I'm saying. All right, Brandon, that'll do it for us this week. We got more fall practice to cover this upcoming week as we get closer to playing the Gators on August 31st up there in Gainesville. You already said you're not going.
Have fun up there.
I will.
You know what? I there's a small.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Very small.
Okay.
They're talking about some box seats.
All right. Well, listen, you could be with the hottie toddies, and I'll be in the press box sweating my you-know-what off in any event. It's going to be a fun one. All right. We'll check everyone next time. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We will see you next time on the Real Ones Canes podcast. Peace.